I'm Tom Smith. I'm an economist in business school, and I do economics of labor markets and other macroeconomic types of topics. There's no doubt that the economy plays a really important role, critical role in all types of elections. People vote lunch bucket over and over and over again. It's not clear how much they vote the economy during midterm elections. I think this is a very unique sort of midterm election in that respect. I also think it's a very unique economic climate in that a lot of surveys are indicating that most people don't know the recession is over. I think this is puzzling, but not really puzzling. It's over because the Business Cycle Dating Committee of the NBER said that it's over. And they made this announcement about a month ago, and they said, by the way, the recession ended in June of 2009. This probably didn't take a lot of economists by surprise, because we've been talking about how the economy had been building over the last year or so, particularly the last nine months. GDP growth is relatively strong, but the unemployment rates are remaining considerably high. So I think people are puzzled that the economic recession is over, and so you watch even the Daily Show, where most people under 30 are getting their news, and even he is saying, well, supposedly the recession is over, or the alleged recovery, or the end of the recession, or what have you. If he thinks that the recession isn't over, and that's where most of us are getting our news, then we don't think the recession is over either. That does not spell good news for any incumbent. And since we've got lots of Democratic incumbents, they're not going to be in Congress anymore. It's about that simple. How do you convince people that the economy is turned a corner? We have to enact some policies to push the unemployment rate down. We have to encourage firms that are now being profitable to actually hire workers, which is, ordinarily wouldn't think that this would be a big deal. We just, most firms have an incentive to want to hire workers when they see demand building up, but what we're finding is that people were so scared about losing their jobs that they were willing to put in a couple, 2, 3, 10, 20, 40 more hours a week to keep their job. And so firms are realizing that, hey, we can get along pretty well with, a third less of our workforce, and we're not seeing that big of a turnaround in demand for our products, so this is good for us. We're becoming more profitable, and we don't need to hire anybody. So unemployment rates are staying at 10%. It's not a big surprise. If we want to make the economy turn in terms of how people are perceiving the economy, I think there need to be some sort of big government policies that create additional incentives for firms to hire workers. I know Georgia has an incentive program, right? Keep Georgia Working or something of that nature, where they're providing incentives for firms to hire workers at very low cost. But firms are fired. Turnaround is incredibly costly to firms. Training new workers is incredibly costly to firms. Riffing workers is incredibly costly to firms. And firms are afraid that we're going to go into a double-dip recession. I've been fielding that question a lot. And so with those fears, they're not hiring. Unemployment rate is still up. Everybody feels that, the recession isn't over. And so a bunch of politicians are going to lose their jobs. It's about that simple, I think.
Okay, hi. I'm Alan Abramowitz. I'm in the Department of Political Science, and my specialization is elections and voting behavior. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next Tuesday, or what I think is likely to happen anyway, why I think this is likely to happen, and a little bit about the implications of that for what's going to happen after that in the next Congress and looking ahead to 2012. Because, of course, we always have to be thinking about the next election. At least I always have to be thinking about the next election.
That's good.
So I think what's going to happen next Tuesday is that, and I've been saying this now for several months, that Republicans are very likely to win a majority of seats in the House of Representatives. I think I might own forecasting model predicted a Republican gain of somewhere between 45 and 50 seats in the House back several weeks ago. And I think that's probably about right. It could be a little bit bigger than that. It could be a little bit smaller than that, but I think it'll be in that vicinity. I think Democrats will probably hang on to a majority in the Senate by a very narrow margin. They're going to be down from 59 seats now to probably somewhere between 50 and 53 seats. So it's going to be a very narrow majority in the Senate, which is more kind of the natural condition of things, small majorities, because we have a very evenly divided country. And the big Democratic majorities that we've had for the past 2 years, particularly since the 2008 election, are really kind of unnatural and were a result of some short-term factors that really boosted the Democrats in both 2006 and 2008, namely the war in Iraq and the unpopularity of George Bush, and then, of course, the condition of the economy in 2008. We could have said, I think, the day after the 2008 election, that it was very likely that the Democrats were going to lose a substantial number of seats in Congress in 2010 for 3 reasons, or for 2 reasons at the time, actually. There were two of the 3 factors that are really critical in determining the outcomes of these midterm elections were already locked in 2008. One, it's a midterm election with a Democratic president. That alone tells you that it's very likely that the president's party is going to lose seats in both the House and Senate, especially in the House. That's a very regular occurrence, and unless there's something going on that's very unusual to offset that tendency, that's what we would expect. Second, the Democrats would be defending a large number of seats in marginal or Republican-leaning districts. In the last 2 elections, the Democrats have gained a lot of seats. And a lot of the seats that they've gained are in states and districts that normally vote Republican. So this year, of the 256 Democratic seats in the House of Representatives, there are 47 that voted for both George Bush in 2004 and John McCain in 2008, 47. So immediately you see the Republicans have a great opportunity to pick up a lot of those seats, and I think we're going to see that the gains are going to be heavily concentrated in those districts. There are another about 20 or so, or more than that, actually about 40, that they carried once. The Democrats don't have nearly as many opportunities. So those 2 factors that were already set in 2008. The third factor, of course, is the condition of the economy and the very negative views of the economy. And it's the subjective perceptions that, of course, really matter, as you were just hearing. The fact that the recession ended officially is irrelevant. Americans actually have a more negative view right now of the condition of the economy and the outlook for the next year than they did a year ago. So that's definitely going to hurt the Democrats. The condition of the economy is not always the big issue in midterm elections. In 2006, it was the war in Iraq. But when the economy is bad, that is generally going to be the dominant issue, and the president's party is likely to suffer losses as a result. So that's what I think is going to happen. What can we look forward to, if that's the right word, in the next Congress then, and looking ahead to 2012? I think what we can look forward to is confrontation and investigation. So we're going to have narrow majorities in the House and Senate, probably a fairly narrow Republican majority in the House and a fairly narrow Democratic majority in the Senate, although it could be a narrow Republican majority in the Senate. And most of the Democrats who lose their seats in this election, a disproportionate share of them will be moderates because they tend to represent the marginal states and districts. On the other hand, these moderates are going to be replaced in almost every case not by moderate Republicans, but by very conservative and in many cases Tea Party, or at least Tea Party influenced Republicans. So looking ahead to the next Congress, we're going to have a more liberal a smaller but more liberal Democratic party. So good news for you liberal Democrats out there. The Democrats are going to be more liberal, but there are going to be fewer of them. And the Republicans are going to be more conservative in all likelihood. So we're going to have more polarization. I wrote a book about this called The Disappearing Center. So it's probably bad for the country, but hopefully good for my book. That's what's going to happen. I think there's a strong likelihood, for example, that Republicans will push to either repeal the health care reform bill or, more likely, defund it, to remove funding for implementation from appropriations bills. Obama will veto those bills, or Democrats will filibuster them in the Senate. But it's not unlikely that this will lead to an ultimate confrontation in which we'll have another government shutdown. So I think that is quite likely, in fact. I've been reading quotations from a number of prominent Republicans, leaders in the last few days, in which they talk about the fact that there will be no compromise with Obama. So if anyone's expecting that we're going to enter a new age of bipartisanship and harmony after this election, I think that's extremely unlikely. Looking ahead to 2012, and part of the reason for that is, in fact, the growing influence of the Tea Party movement. And the Tea Party movement is simply the latest indicator of the rightward shift of the Republican Party's base. It's really nothing new. The vast majority of Tea Party supporters are Republicans and very conservative Republicans. And those people are going to continue to play a role in the 2012 elections. And any Republican who wants to win the presidential nomination in 2012 is going to have to target Tea Party voters, because they will make up a very large share of the Republican primary vote in 2012. And in the caucus states, which are still somewhat significant, and they will probably dominate. So we can look forward to seeing that going into 2012. Obama's chances in 2012 are actually quite good. Now, it depends on what happens to the economy, obviously, over the next 2 years. But normally, first-term incumbent presidents, when a party has taken the White House and has held it for only one term, have a very high rate of success. In the last 100 years, there's been only one first-term president, when a party just took over the White House, who lost. Only one. Does anyone know who that was? Exactly. It was Jimmy Carter, our colleague here at Emory. And every other one has been reelected. And so, you know, and Carter had a lot of things going against him, obviously. He had a bad economy. He had the hostage crisis. You know, he just had a lot of things going against him. And it takes a lot for a first-term incumbent president to lose. So by that standard, Obama, you know, should be favored, you know, unless the economy is as bad then, you know, as it is now, or doesn't get much better between now and 2012, which is certainly possible. So I'll leave you with that thought and pass it on to Richard here.